This is Seymour Rocks reporting from Down Under. Well, today's the day I've been dreading for some time now. I've always seen the fate of Julian Assange as a litmus test for where the world is headed. I was woken at 1 o'clock this morning with the news that the Ecuadorian embassy had withdrawn its political asylum, which they had given to Julian Assange, and an hour later the British police went into the building to arrest him and carried him out. I'm still trying to get my head around this outrage, although I think I know what it means for us, especially as it comes not quite 1 month after a terrible massacre in my home city, Christchurch, which is anything other than what it is being painted as, while meantime there is a hysteria everywhere and a backlash against truthtellers, which is only just beginning, I believe. Nothing illustrates all of this better than what happened to me this morning. I was anxious to post something about this on my blog, and I managed to post one item on the arrest of Assange, but when I tried to post a second item, everything stalled. In addition to Blogger suddenly not working, it turned out that I could not even send the HTML text code to myself in Facebook Messenger or in Gmail. If I tried sending anything else, a small message, either in Messenger or email, it worked perfectly. But if I came back to the piece in question, forget it. The various articles that are out there can best explain the events better than I can, but in brief, I can say this that I've gleaned without going into any detail. The visit to Julian by journalist Cassandra Fairbanks was the first indication that something was afoot when the embassy insisted that Julian undergo a strip search before seeing her, and she was also had the door closed and was not allowed to see what was happening behind closed doors. And then there was the leak from Ecuador that they were about to push Julian out of the embassy. This was denied and nothing happened, but this is probably because of the actions of those mounting a vigil against the embassy. However, it became really clear that this was not the end of it, that something was afoot. And yesterday, WikiLeaks held a press conference revealing an attempt by someone in Spain to extort 3 million euros from WikiLeaks. And in addition to this, details of the incredibly intrusive surveillance of Julian Assange within the embassy, including recordings of meetings that are supposed to be confidential, such as with his lawyer and with his doctor. And then at the end of all of this, the aggressive questioning from British prostitutes, such as, what do you think of Assange's role in the election of Donald Trump, etc., etc. Very, very aggressive and unprofessional, to say the very least. Events moved very quickly, with Ecuador announcing that it had removed political asylum, and then shortly after, the cops moved in to literally carry a protesting Assange out of the embassy into a waiting police paddy wagon. The Assange that we have not seen or heard of in a year has clearly not lost his spirit, or even if his health has been destroyed. He gave a thumbs up signal from the paddy wagon, and his first words were ones of defiance. Immediately, a sealed indictment was unsealed that made reference to him trying to get a password from Chelsea Manning so that he could hack official computers. This apparently carries a jail term of only 5 years. Well, who in their right mind would believe that the US authorities have spent so much time, money and effort just for this? To send him away for 5 years. No, this is a ruse to possibly appease the British judges so that they can feel a little bit better, so that they don't have to imagine they're extraditing him to the US to disappear into a black hole after a secret trial. Only fools would believe otherwise. We've been told by the lamestream media that all that Assange needed to do was to walk out of the embassy, and it was always implied that he somehow is the author of his own misfortune. He's been called today by the judge a narcissist. Well, that sounds like the pot calling the kettle black to me. I even saw something the other day where, if I have it correct, the British authorities had stated just days ago that they would not extradite Assange. All of that was totally fake, and as soon as Assange is removed from the embassy, the sealed indictment is unsealed and the extradition procedures are begun. So everything Assange has warned of that he said would happen, and which was poo-pooed by the media, by everyone, it's come about exactly as he feared. In the film of Assange being carried out of the embassy, there is one long-haired individual who appears. The journalist Cassandra Fairbanks reported seeing all the arresting police outside the embassy days ago. When she approached them and queried them, they claimed that they were customers at Harrods, and that the long-haired individual even claimed he'd never heard of WikiLeaks. So, what will follow? I suspect Assange will be in a British jail while the extradition questions are resolved, which may take some time. I've also heard that there may be a plan B, with the Swedes reportedly reopening their rape allegations, their case against Julian Assange. So the Americans may have it in mind that if one plan doesn't work, then the other one will. Meanwhile, I've just seen a report of US lawmakers celebrating over his arrest. The coup against Trump has gone into abeyance as the politicians unite in their hatred of Assange, just as they do over waging war. There's nobody who seems to be objecting to war being waged against Venezuela or Iran. And in the meantime, Trump, who said scores of times during his campaign, "I love WikiLeaks," now claims to know nothing about it. So, as to what all of this might mean, I can hardly begin to express my fears. With the Christchurch massacre carried out in all probability by state actors and the ensuing crackdown that has hardly started yet, dark times have descended upon us, and the psychopaths and the satanic forces in charge, and a wee while ago I would never have used that sort of language. It seems now that evil is in the ascendancy. Not seems, but is. Journalists everywhere, rather than supping with the deep state devil, should be quaking in their boots. Now, instead of choosing to be the scribes of the deep state, they will now be forced to carry out this role. It's not only journalism, and especially alternative media, that is gravely threatened, but it is now everybody, although, as in all tyrannies, the life of the silent majority, the passively accepting, will be largely unaffected, I imagine, for now at least. New Zealand has had its very own 9/11, and we're likely to see our version of the Patriot Act in short order. Meanwhile, the ability for journalists to speak out and for the public to get the truth about the sorts of crimes that WikiLeaks has told us about for about 9 years will disappear, and along with the destruction of the internet as we know it, we will all be thrust into the dark, and we'll only have the word of the lamestream fake media. So where to from here? In the meantime, I'm going to continue as best I can with the interference, which makes it very, very difficult, and with my own declining health, to bring as much of the truth as I can. And I don't know if I'm being paranoid, but I can imagine a rude knock at the door sometime in the not so distant future. So this is Seymour Rocks reporting from down under.